Good morning, everyone. Let's begin this live webinar with a welcome note. On behalf of the Faculty of Law, I'm Dr. Mahalingam. It gives me an immense pleasure to give the welcome address on this occasion. I'd like to welcome our guest speaker, Mr. Rajiv Bansal, Senior Advocate, High Court of Delhi, to deliver a lecture on professional ethics in law. Sir, it's a great pleasure to have you in our midst on this occasion. You all join me to welcome Professor Dr. Manjula Batra, Dean, Faculty of Law, SGT University, for joining this occasion. A warm welcome to all the faculty members, Professor Rajiv Khanna, Professor Rajan Rai, Professor J.M. Gandhi, and other faculty members of the Faculty of Law, and all the participants across India as well as from Delhi. At the outset, I welcome one and all. Topic we have chosen, very relevant topic today. Professional ethics in law. Professional ethics is nothing but code of conduct, that is those set code or moral principles that govern a person's contact in a professional or workplace or work life. Actually, it's not only important for legal profession, it is also very important for every profession. Those who are, following professional ethics, they will stand apart in society. They get respect in society. Professional ethic is very important, and it gives you get respect, you get self-esteem. You gain self-esteem if you follow professional ethics in your profession. See, the Bar Council of India has laid down the professional conduct, the various provisions which govern the professional ethics of lawyer. Only profession which, if you don't follow the professional ethics, you'll be penalized. That is legal profession. If you don't follow professional ethics, you'll be penalized. But no other profession does this. So professional ethics is very important for an employee. But now we are in a professional ethics is on the decline. Overall, not only in India, it's around the globe. At the same time, so we like to listen from today's speaker. He's here to give us the global perspective, the Indian perspective, and also basically is going to take stock of situation about professional ethics in the legal profession, So with these words, now may I invite Professor Dr. Manjula Batra to moderate and also to introduce the speaker on this occasion. Ma'am, it's over to you.
May I start?
Yes, ma'am, you can start.
Start? Yes. Good morning, everybody. I welcome Mr. Rajiv Bansal, our chief guest and the key speaker. I welcome all the faculty members, the students of the Faculty of Law, SGT University, and also everybody else who has joined in, be students or advocates. On behalf of the Faculty of Law, and of course the management of SGT University, I am very, very happy to welcome Mr. Rajiv Bansal to this platform. Rajiv Bansal is a dynamic lawyer. He's a brilliant lawyer, a very hardworking person, and I'm really grateful to him that he agreed on such a short notice to come with us on this platform. A little bit of introduction about Mr. Bansal. Rajiv did his schooling from St. Xavier's School, Delhi. He completed his BCom honors from Kirori Mal College, Delhi University, and completed his legal education from the Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. He joined the bar in the year 1992 and started his own practice in the year 1994, which is really very early. He just gave a gap of 2 years and he was on his own. He's been practicing in the High Court of Delhi, Supreme Court of India, National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission, Company Law Board, Competition Law Appellate Tribunal, National Green Tribunal, and many other statutory bodies. He's appeared before the high courts across India, and he's been a standing counsel for the DDA and a senior municipal counsel for the New Delhi Municipal Council. He's been excelling in arbitration proceedings, especially in commercial disputes. Rajiv is an environmentalist at heart. That is why he was made a member of a high-powered committee constituted by the High Court, and he had to create awareness about environment, especially related to wildlife features. He's also assisted the court many times as amicus curiae, and he was designated as a senior advocate in March 2017 by the High Court of Delhi. His areas of specializations include constitutional law, contract law, property law, administrative law, debt recovery laws, environment protection laws, property law, among others. His name has been reported in many landmark decisions. I think I will not take too much of time because he has a lot to talk about on professional ethics in law. He will also discuss the journey that he had, to date through his practice and the various problems and challenges which face a young advocate. Over to Mr. Bansal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manjula ma'am. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you, Dr. Mahalingam. And thank you, all those who are watching this. And I believe Dr. Khanna is also there. And I owe a lot to Dr. Khanna. He was my teacher. He taught me property law. He taught me contract law. So I owe a lot to him. Thank you all. And thank you, students. I know the time schedules have gone very awry these days. Everybody is, sleeping late, watching movies, or PUBG or something or the other is going on. It's very difficult to get up early morning to watch this. But thank you, students who have made it possible to be here. Dr. Mahalingam has made my task easier by introducing what the professional ethics actually are. So I would begin by just a brief introduction of what the professional ethics are. Actually, professional ethics is a very wide term. Everybody tends to interpret it in its own way, in his own way. I think there are certain fundamental rules, certain fundamental principles which a practicing lawyer or a lawyer must imbibe in himself for the protection, growth of the institution of justice administration as a whole, and for his own survival. He cannot forget that a lawyer's survival is never disjointed from the survival of the system. If the system is robust, the lawyer is bound to benefit from the robust system. So according to me, these are fundamental rules, fundamental principles which govern the conduct and behavior of a legal professional, so far as the professional ethics in law are concerned. So I won't dilate too much on this, and we'll straight away begin what I think when we have to talk about professional ethics in law, we must see who are the stakeholders in the legal profession. Now, in the legal profession, the stakeholders are the court, the client, the public at large, and the lawyer himself. The lawyer himself would also include the colleagues at the bar and the lawyer, the individual lawyer whom we expect to imbibe the professional ethics. So there will be five main actors to this whole thing. I will begin by a little introduction about what professional ethics mean when we talk about professional ethics and duty towards the court. So when we are looking at professional ethics, actually there are a set of duties, sets of responsibilities which you have towards all these actors. Like I just said, the court, the public at large, the fellow colleagues, the state at large, you yourself, the client. So these are various actors in the system of administration of justice. And then you have your duties towards them. So first of all, let me begin by encapsulating the duties that one owes towards the court. See, the first and foremost duty that you have towards the court is to show respect to the court. You cannot afford to be disrespectful to the court. As a lawyer, you have a direct stake in the respect, in the dignity of the court. If what will happen? What will happen? If tomorrow the lawyers who are an integral part of the system do not respect the court, show scant respect to the court, the authority of the court will be undermined in those circumstances. People will say, look, the lawyers themselves are not respecting the lawyers. So why should we? It will have a cascading effect. And I fear if this happens, if the authority and the dignity of the court is undermined in any which way, then the people will not resort to the courts. They will not resort to courts for resolution of their disputes. They will pick up guns, there'll be gunfights on the streets, and there'll be absolute jungle raj. There'll be absolute jungle raj. Nobody will go to the court. So the authority of the court itself is undermined. So as a lawyer, you have to maintain the dignity and the authority of the court. Recently, Supreme Court has punished a few lawyers who disrespected the court. See, what you can do is you can criticize a judgment. You don't like a judgment, you think the judgment is flawed on certain legal principles, you can criticize the judgment, but you cannot criticize the the judge. I'm sorry. You can't criticize the judge. You can't get personal to the judge. And this tendency is fast increasing. People are not realizing and obliterating this thin line, which is the distinction between criticizing the judgment and criticizing the judge. There is contempt law. There is contempt law in this country. But why do you want the contempt law to be invoked by the court against its own officers? A lawyer, we all know, is an officer of the court. The court's main arm is a lawyer. Why should we expect a system to be so fragile, to become so weak that the court resorts to using power of contempt to enforce its dignity against the lawyers? So that's something absolutely no. The first thing is respect to the court. Then the era is very competitive. Everybody wants to score a point over the other lawyer or other lawyers in the system. Everybody somehow wants to be very successful, and for them the success comes from showing how many matters they've succeeded in, which I beg to differ. The mark of success is not how many matters you succeed in. The mark of success is how many matters you're able to give your best. In how many matters you get accolades from your clients, from the court, from everybody. So according to me, that's the mark of success. But it's not existent anymore. So people resort, the clients pressurize, the lawyers themselves do it, and there is a tendency to influence the judge, which is fast increasing. The influence can be brought in various ways. And this tendency is totally something which needs to be destroyed completely, removed from the roots. There should be no influence brought on a judge. The judges today we have are very strong. They are made of sterner stuff, and they normally do not succumb to all these pressures or influences. But then why do you want to bring any kind of pressure or influence on a judge? You should not. You should not bring any influence or pressure on a judge. Let the judge decide on the basis of what you presented before the judge. We all, lawyers, meet judges, social occasions, official functions. The conversation should be horse any matter which is pending before the judge. Of course, if the judge has decided a particular matter long back, you may touch upon it. You may. That's nothing wrong about it in your private conversations with a judge. But if a matter is pending before a judge, you do not try to even remotely mention about it to the judge or try and discuss something or the other which will influence the mind of the judge when he decides that matter. So that is something which needs to be totally avoided. The other aspect which the other aspect when we are talking about the duty towards the court is that you need to be very fair and frank to the court. The duty to be fair is fundamental to the profession. This duty of being fair to the court starts much earlier than the actual appearance of a lawyer before the court to argue his matter. At the stage when the lawyer prepares a petition, suit, an affidavit, or anything else to be filed in court, that's the stage the duty to be fair and frank to the court begins. Ma'am, we all know how the client, when he walks into an office, is so keen to get a judgment in his favor. So there is a tendency
Here it's buffering. Vishnuji, it's buffering. It stopped. Can't hear. Should we wait for 2 minutes till it comes back? Because we can't hear him. Hello, there's some technical error. Please bear with us for some time. It'll be resolved soon.
सर एक आपने बोलो कि हमारे लिए ओके है
Ma'am, it's fine over here. It's problem with the speaker. The problem is with the speaker.
Okay, it's fine over there because I can't hear Rajiv ji.
That's what, no, we are fine here. There's no issue here.
Okay, okay.
His connection is poor.
Connection over there in the university.
No, with speaker.
Speaker connection is poor.
Yeah,
Yeah. Everybody can, the audience can hear
yeah.
because
Yes,
I'm the audience here. I can't hear.
He left the group actually because of, maybe poor connectivity with him.
Okay, you'll join in again. Okay.
I think he will join again. Yeah, we have to hold.
He has a problem. He has a problem.
He has a problem. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Rajiv Bansal.
Sorry for the inconvenience caused. The speaker will be right back.
Ma'am, can you speak to him?
Yeah, we're trying to call him.
Yeah.
He's not responding. I mean, I don't know. He may be busy with the technical. Yeah.
He has joined back.
He's joined? Yeah. Okay.
Sir, can you hear us? Rajiv sir, you have to switch on your video.
Can he hear you, Dr. Mahalingam?
Ma'am, we can hear you, ma'am. He is there now. He's back. He's back now.
Okay.
Sir, unmute your mic, sir. Can you unmute your mic, please? Rajiv sir, can you unmute your mic? We can't hear you.
Have you heard?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, there was some problem with the internet or whatever. I don't know. So, okay.
Oh,
Now
okay.
that everything has opened up, the internet connections have gone really bad. You can put on this. So I'm so sorry for this interruption. So I was on the duty towards the court and that we all have a tendency to make these off-the-cuff remarks. This is something which needs to be avoided. And there is a danger. You've made a statement off the cuff and you get caught on the wrong foot, then you've had it from court. So please avoid it. And then we come to another aspect. And I can tell you there are some lawyers who are masters in the art of seeking adjournments. They are said adjournment champion. So this tendency of seeking adjournments is something which is deleterious for the system itself. You see, what happens is that a lawyer is on both sides of the fence. In some cases, a lawyer is appearing for the party which is which has an injunction in its favor, and sometimes a lawyer is appearing for the party for which against which an injunction is operating. Now, a lawyer works both ways. I mean, he's appearing in some cases on one side, in some cases on the other side. So what happens normally is that the party which is operating, which has an injunction in its favor, tries to delay the matter. It has an injunction in its favor. And the party against which the injunction is operating tries to expedite the matter because it knows that it may ultimately succeed in a matter. So it tries to expedite. Now, this is, we all know, we all call it laws delays. But more often than not, these are not laws delays, these are lawyers delays. So the lawyers, when one sees at times what proceedings, 8 adjournments, on some ground, lawyer is unwell, lawyer has gone out of the station, not been able to return, XYZ, who's a relative, is unwell. So there are myriads of reasons which can be given to seek an adjournment. So this has to be avoided. If we were to be serious practitioners and we were to avoid adjournments unnecessary, there may be a situation where the adjournments are warranted for some reason or another. But all these unwarranted adjournments should be avoided because our legal system is criticized that there is a huge backlog. This backlog is also because of lawyers who take adjournments, unnecessary adjournments. So this tendency of seeking adjournments has to be avoided. Then there is something which I must bring to the notice of my young students who are going to be lawyers. What I'm saying may be good for litigators, but it will be equally applicable to lawyers working with law firms. Now, what happens is that when you're arguing a matter before a court, you give to the court judgments on which you want to rely upon in support of your case. A duty is owed by a lawyer to the court that it will also give to the court those judgments which are against it. Against its case, and try and distinguish those judgments from its case. A lawyer must not hide a judgment because what will happen? There will be absolute confusion. One judgment saying something, the other judgment saying something else. Because if you're not bringing to the notice of a judge, of a court, the entire law on the subject, you're creating a difficult situation. So you owe a duty to the court not only to present the judgments that you are wanting to rely on your favor, but also the judgments which go against you. And this duty is far more aggressive when the other side is ex parte, when the other side is not appearing before the court and has been proceeded ex parte. Of course, now we have legal researchers attached to every court. And these legal researchers do a fantastic job. They complete the research for the judge. So problem is reduced to a great extent, but then it's a duty that you owe to the court. You can't distinguish a judgment. You can say, well, this is a judgment which appears to be against me, but then it is distinguishable on facts. And then, argue your matter. The other aspect which I wanted to bring to my young friends' notice is many a times the lawyers indulge in what is called bench hunting. So if I argue a matter before a particular court and I find that the court is not favorably inclined, court is not inclined in my favor, and court might decide in my favor, then very cleverly the lawyer will seek an adjournment and get out of that court and then try and delay the matter, try and see that the roster changes and you have some other judge on the roster bench. So there is this tendency of bench hunting, and when this kind of a thing happens, we definitely bring it to the notice of the court. We as opposing lawyers bring it to the notice of the court that there's only an attempt to indulge in bench hunting, and the courts come down very heavily in that situation. But you can't. You have a case presented before the court, whosoever be the judge manning that court. You can't indulge in bench hunting. Now I come to the next actor in this system, the client. The first and foremost duty that a lawyer owes to the client is to be see, I'll tell you what. Now, the relationship which a lawyer shares with his client is there's a Latin phrase for it called oberemae fidei, a relationship of utmost faith. So when a client walks into your office and hands over a brief to you, he trusts you fully. He trusts you professionally. He trusts you morally. This trust that a client reposes in you as a lawyer should never be breached. Should never be breached. It's not only immoral, it's not only unethical, it's unprofessional. It's not expected of a lawyer. So when a client has handed over a brief to you, firstly, he's trusting your competence. Don't let him down. Work hard on your brief. Give it your best. And the faith and the trust that a lawyer has reposed in your competence, please maintain it. The other is that the faith and trust which a client reposes in you is also that you will maintain confidentiality of the information that you are privy of from the client. Please don't share this information with anybody else, much less with the opposing side. Don't sell off your client. Don't sell your client to the opposite side. I must tell you something. Today, a client, even if it looks like a rustic client coming from a village or from a mofussil or from a town, he's an intelligent guy. Either before coming to you, he has been to many other offices, or he will go to other lawyers to ask them their opinion, to ask their view. This is called free advice. A lot of time of our lawyers is wasted because you get all these people coming to you, and they come by references. Mostly they come by references. They'll come, they'll seek your advice, they'll seek your opinion, and it will never fructify into a matter. Even if it's not the fructifying in a matter at that moment, that stage, or that matter, you don't get a brief for that matter. Please don't mislead a client. Don't tell him something. Don't show him the moon. And if you do not know a particular subject and a client walks into your office, please feel free to tell the client that I am not well versed with this. Give me time to read. I will read it and I'll come back to you. Let me tell you, the clients appreciate that. Let me tell you, the clients really appreciate that. He'll come back to you, tell him what is it. Even if you don't get the brief of, even if you don't get a brief, that matter, believe me, you will get the brief. You will get the brief either through his friends, family, or whatever. He'll go and tell the others, look, I met this lawyer. He was so upfront, so upright. He said that I didn't know this subject. I will read it and tell you. So you can imagine that, this is how it works. So don't sell off your client, be fair, tell him, and then don't exaggerate. When a client walks into your office, don't exaggerate. You don't tell the client that, oh, you will succeed, come what may, without telling him what is the strength of his case. Every case has strengths and weaknesses. Tell the client what are the strengths of his case and what are the weaknesses of his case. What are the strengths of the opposite side's case. It's a duty that you owe to the client. It can be disastrous. The client is just dreaming. He's pinned his hopes so high that he doesn't see failure. And tomorrow, God forbid, if anything goes wrong in the matter, he'll never forgive you. He'll never forgive you. And the word of mouth will spread against you. So please don't do it. The next thing which I want to tell my young friends is that there is this issue is really ticklish. I didn't know how to deal with this issue, but I put something, whatever I could think. The issue of fee. Now there are no standards of fee today. You have lawyers who will appear for a bail application, charge 11,000, 21,000, 22,000. And there are lawyers who are appearing who are charging 15 lakhs per appearance for a bail application. There is no parity between the two. It goes by the standing of a lawyer, the competence of a lawyer, the respect that a lawyer commands in court. All of these are all factors which govern the fee. So I am not going to say anything about the fee part. Just to say that as lawyers, you owe a duty to those who are deprived sections of the society. Please do their matters pro bono. Somebody can't afford, don't insist on your normal fee. If somebody cannot pay, please give away the fee. Especially many of you who are in your last semester. Ma'am, if I'm correct, they'll be passing out now, very soon. They will be passing out in a very different era, in a very different time, when people actually have no money, especially the poor who are going to fight it out, poor who have lost their jobs completely, who have no money in their pocket. They may not only be fighting their employer, they could be fighting their neighbor who has tried to take over their land in their absence. They could be fighting their brother who, while they were absent from the village, are trying to usurp their property. So I think I request you who will now be becoming fresh, will be now graduating and becoming fresh lawyers, to please help those who can't afford. Come to the aid of those who can't afford it. Delhi High Court, Delhi Legal Services Authority are doing a phenomenal job. They do a phenomenal job. Join them in whatever capacity you can, whatever capacity they permit. You will not only gain experience, you'll also gain a lot of, you'll also generate a lot of goodwill. The other thing which is related to the fee is the clients, more often than not, give you money.
It stopped again. Please bear with us for some time. It seems there's a technical issue.
Ma'am, again, the problem is in his side. He has a poor connectivity.
Okay, it's the problem is with the speaker's connectivity. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
Okay. We'll just call him up. Call him up. Find out.
He's back again.
Okay,
He's
it's back
back
again.
again.
Thank you so much. We lost power. We lost power. I think
Okay.
I think everything is going wrong today. I don't know what's the reason. We
No. Abhi nahi, abhi hasn't.
today we have a power. I'm so sorry. We have had a power failure, so there's no internet connectivity. We are through the 4G connection.
Yeah.
Now, there is money given to a lawyer by the client. Keep money on account for filing for anything. A lot of times what happens is this money is also not accounted for by a lawyer. See, this money is given to you for filing expenses and so on account money. Please keep a total account of this money. Give to the client back what is not expended. Give him an account of the money that has been actually spent. So you have to be very clean and clear with in your dealings with a client when it comes to money. So I think with that, I end the client portion. Suggestions, what a lawyer should be with respect to his client. A lawyer also owes duty towards his fellow colleagues. And I must tell you of something of my own life. So, a few years ago, exactly in 2014, I stopped filing and I decided to get into counsel. I was not a designated senior then. I got designated. And I would think that, who is going to engage me if I'm not going to be aggressive? I was never disrespectful to the court, but I was aggressive. And I was aggressive to the extent that I would take on the other side. I was told by many of my friends that you must tone down your aggression. I would always say, am I aggressive towards the court? Am I disrespectful to the court? And they would say, no, you're not disrespectful to the court, but you're disrespectful to the belief. There are people, there are youngsters, there are others who kind of get rattled by this aggression. So tone it down. I started working on it. It was a difficult thing for me to work on. But since it involved a complete change of personality. But believe me, I was able to change. It took some time, but I was able to change. I was able to make my presentation. I was able to give up my aggression. I was able to keep my calm. I was able to argue calmly, but with firmness. And that helped. That helped in various ways. Firstly, I was able to wash that impression that I'm an aggressive lawyer. It doesn't really help. To carry that label that you are an aggressive lawyer doesn't help. I've suffered because of it immensely. And I would request my friends to not adopt an aggressive mode of submissions, arguing. It's never beneficial. The other thing which I want to tell you is that never demean a lawyer who's appearing on the other side. You can demean a lawyer in various ways. You can tell your client, in private conversation with your client, oh, what a useless lawyer he is. Doesn't know the law. Try and demean the lawyer. When you lose to a lawyer a matter, you try and demean the lawyer. You say, oh, he's a crook. He managed. This is something which is totally unwarranted. This is something totally unethical. Never should you indulge in demeaning a lawyer. There is a danger. I was told by the legendary Mr. Parasaran one day, don't. He said, I was saying that, when I joined the bar, close friends was Satish Parasaran. Is the legendary Mr. K. Parasaran. So I used to go to his house in good old days. So one day Mr. Parasaran, words of wisdom, and he said, don't go to canteen. Don't sit in the canteen. One didn't realize. One, of course, did sit in the canteen. One, of course, now the free. News about your fellow lawyers. Everybody will know that you've spoken ill of a lawyer or you have spoken ill of a judge. Avoid. Never speak ill of a lawyer, speak ill of a judge. Never. That High Courts everywhere. Delhi High Court, my parent court, because that's the court where my pasta is kept every morning. And one. With Mr. Ramachandran.
Sir, your internet, I think some issue is breakage is there.
Wait for 20 seconds, please. We'll come back to you soon. Rajiv's video is off now. It's come now. It's gone again.
Come back. Is it better now? Is it better? Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better, sir. It's better.
Okay, we switched on to another network.
Yes.
So I'm very happy that in Delhi High Court you find lawyers being very cooperative towards each other, by and large. And the cooperation at the bar is something which is something to be really appreciated. So if I don't have a brief, somehow my brief is not traceable immediately, or there are some pages missing from the brief, then immediately the lawyer on the opposite side.
Really problem at his end. It's the same when he spoke.
Well, am I audible? Am I audible?
You're audible. You're audible, sir.
Okay.
Yes, yes,
So the
yes.
lawyer on the other side will immediately give his file, or will provide the missing papers, if not on that day, maybe for the next date of hearing. So this, when you cooperate at the bar, everybody appreciates your conduct. Everybody appreciates, talks very highly of you. And this is something which you must imbibe, cooperation with your fellow colleagues. Now we come to the next segment of this discussion. See, the legal system, or the system of administration of justice, operates mainly for the good of the public at large, for the public order. So you must, while keeping the interest of your client in mind, never forget the interest of the public at large. And I've already said, when I was dealing with duty to the court, that when you are giving to the court the correct factual matrix, giving to the court the correct legal scenario, you are actually not only helping your client and not only helping the judge to arrive at the right decision, but you are helping the public at large in the right law being settled. The right law being settled. If the right law is not being settled, as I said, it's going to be a complete anarchy. We've seen times where, one judgment saying something, one judgment saying something. It becomes so difficult. The client says, no, I read this judgment. Today, because of Google, the clients read everything and come. Everything is on Google. So the client reads and comes. The client says, oh, I read it on Google. There is this judgment of the Supreme Court. You are saying something different. It becomes very embarrassing for a lawyer at that stage to handle a client, to say, well, there is this judgment, yes, which has struck a different note, probably because the proper assistance was not rendered to the court. The past judgments were not brought to the notice of the court, and this judgment is in per incurium. So that's something which happens so often. So the interest of public at large is that order should be maintained, correct law should be laid down. If that is, and the respect to the court is maintained, so that people do not take to weapons on the street. Then there is one thing which I thought, I didn't know where to put it, but I thought this is the best place to put the duty towards the public. India has seen emergence of public interest litigation. In fact, the kind of public interest litigation that we have seen now in COVID times also is stupendous every day, because lawyers are free. There's nothing to do. So file a PIL, file by PL on the most. So you had 5-6 PLs on the same subject, that the government must take care of the migrant laborers. The government is already doing it. The Supreme Court, the High Court are already seized of the matter in one petition. Then why should there be a spurt of the petitions? Why should the time of the court be wasted? You see, every minute of the judicial time costs the public exchequer. Every minute that a judge spends in court has a value. I don't remember, there was a report, I won't remember, I can't venture an offhand, statement on that. But yes, there is a calculation done that how much does each minute of a High Court judge cost. So you don't waste the time of the judge or the court on repeatedly bringing the same issues before the court, which the court has already seized off in one petition. If court has seized off the issue in one petition, you don't expect the court to favor you and deal with it in a different way altogether. No, you can't do that. Then all these public interest litigants, many of them, I'm not saying like we had late Mr. Shori, marvelous job is done. Mr. MC Mehta, marvelous job these people have done. But then you have these, some of these public interest litigants who Justice Krishna Iyer described as busybodies, who just want to bring some cause or the other before the court. Not only waste the time of the court, and what they do is that the petition that they file before the court is leaked to the media even before the cause comes before the court. So these are public hungry people, busybodies. You must separate them from the normal herd. As they say, separate the grain from the chaff, or the chaff from the grain. You have to do that and just see what the profession is actually comprised of. Profession is actually comprised of very sincere practitioners. But every profession, every occupation has some black sheep, and you have to live with it. Then, when I'm talking about your duty towards the court, I'm talking about a duty to the system. Public at large. You see, there are cases where lawyers have been denied loans by the banks. Nobody wants to give a place on rent to a lawyer because we have flexed our muscles. Whenever the occasion has arisen, or not even arisen, we have tried to flex our muscles and show how powerful we are. We are lawyers. We have a lot of these cards. People who are not even lawyers, bearing those stickers, advocate, carrying on, putting those bands in the rear view mirror to show up. So if a cop stops you, jumping the red light, I'm a lawyer. You don't pay your installments on time, car installments on time. The bank tries to take action. I'm a lawyer. You harass your landlord. I'm a lawyer. This is not the way it works. You have to maintain the dignity of your profession. You have to maintain the dignity of the band that you wear. There is a certain dignity attached to it. So don't demean the profession. And this is what your duty is to the public at large. Please don't flex your muscles unwarranted. Wherever it is needed, please do that. But don't try and show off that you are a lawyer. And then I'll come to the last segment now. I'll just finish this duty to the public at large. There's one thing which I must tell you. And this is an experience from my own life. So we were arguing a matter before a learned single judge. It was a matter where the client had taken some loan from the bank. The client was getting external commercial borrowings. These are called ECBs. You get foreign currency loans. The foreign currency loans are very cheap. So the client was getting a foreign currency loan. And the client wanted to pay the bank. The client very honestly paid the money to the bank, returned the money to the bank. The client paid the up-to-date interest. But unfortunately, in good old days, I think now also, they've done away with it in most of the loan agreements. They would levy a charge, what was called a prepayment charge. The bank would say, look, I have given you money for 5 years. You are returning it in 3 years. I will not find a borrower for the next 2 years. So you pay me a penalty, which which was absolutely unwarranted and unforeseen in an economy like ours, which is a growing economy and where there are always takers for loan. But the banks wanted to have their pound of flesh. So we challenged this provision. We said we paid everything. We went and writ jurisdiction, saying that this is a financial institution. The court heard us, and when on the closing day of the hearing, the court said to the other side, very prominent senior lawyer, I won't name him, was appearing on the other side. And he said, you can't penalize the virtue. You can't penalize the virtue. They've paid you not only the principal, the interest. Look at the people who have not even paid you the principal and the interest. The client thought that he had succeeded. So in the interagonum, that is the date of the reservation of the judgment and the pronouncement of the judgment, a sufficiently long time, 6 months went by. The other side, the financial institution, approached the client for a settlement. I advised the client that you should settle, even now. But the client said, no, we've succeeded. Didn't you hear the closing remarks of the judge? He said, you can't penalize the virtue. The judge is going to decide in our favor. We are not going to settle. And believe me, when the judgment came, it was against us. The judge had decided the matter against us on the first principles that a writ does not lie in purely contractual matters. It was not a statutory contract. Of course, law has developed, grown. After that, I'm talking about this 21 years ago. 21 years ago. So law has grown and developed much. So always encourage the clients to settle. I'm not saying that to tell the client that I'm not going to litigate. Go and settle. No, you have, as a lawyer, you have other duties to perform. You have a duty towards your family. You have a duty to take care of your family, your staff, your office, everybody. But firstly, don't foment litigation. The client comes to you, don't increase the number of matters from 1 to 20. I remember there was one lawyer who was called a champion in this. So there was some problem with the government, the Delhi government, the school front, that Delhi government had passed order against the school. And believe me, the championship of the lawyer, admirable. The cases got multiplied and they turned into 20 cases. Cases against, foreign against the teachers and everything. This is called fomenting of litigation. Please don't indulge in this fomenting of litigation. Try and settle the matters. You'll be doing a great favor to your country as a whole. The number of matters reduce, the burden on the public exchequer reduces. So you'll be doing a great favor to your beloved country if you try and promote people to settle through the process of mediation, through the process of conciliation. In India, we have such fantastic, Delhi High Court, the Supreme Court, even the district courts have these mediation centers which are manned by fantastic lawyers. Fantastic lawyers. Hats off to their dedication to the cause of mediation. They work so relentlessly to bring about a compromise. I have done one mediation abroad. Let me tell you, it's nowhere near our mediation. You land up paying, there are QCs who are doing mediation. They charge a bomb, £175 per hour for mediation. So the charges are huge. And we here pay nothing to go to the mediation. We pay nothing to go to mediation. The mediation is free. Rather, the mediation centers in Delhi, whether it's district courts, Delhi High Court or the Supreme Court, you go, you will be offered tea, you will be offered soup. complementary. And if you have accompanied by a child, they have a play area for the child. They have somebody to take care of the child while you are busy with the mediator. So fantastic is our mediation system. Please encourage your. Unfortunately, I'm not a mediator. Lest anybody thinks that I'm a mediator. I'm trying to propagate mediation for that reason. No, unfortunately, I'm not a mediator, and I've missed the bus, I think. But I know the importance of mediation. Court has appointed me a mediator in a couple of matters, and I have seen that one succeeded in those mediations. So I think that's all that I have to discuss with you, my friends, my seniors, ma'am, my teachers.
Yes.
So thank you so much. I'm really, the pleasure and privilege has been entirely mine to be here. Thank you for having me over and letting me share my views, my thoughts with the students. I hope they are of some use to people.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Rajiv Bansal. I think it was an extremely informative.
You should address me only as Rajiv. This Mr. Rajiv Bansal looks as if you're talking to some alien.
Okay, Rajiv, it was an extremely informative and enlightening talk. And the way you explained the fundamental values involved in the legal profession were really brought forth very well in very simple terms, in very simple language. And it has shown to our students and whoever is listening or has listened to your talk that there's a lot of responsibility that a lawyer has when he enters the legal profession. Not only a lawyer, even an academician, even a consultant, even a judge. Law is indeed a very noble profession. We've heard since times immemorial. And we have to see that it continues to be so. Not only when we deal with the court and the court decorum that you explained, it was really, really an eye-opener for all the students, I'm sure, because we need to respect the dignity of the court, need to respect the judges, need to respect the law, need to respect each other, need to respect our colleagues, and also the way we bring in our arguments. And I really like the fact when you of bringing forth the right information. Is the problem? Yeah. So, please continue. Please continue. Continue. So I just want to say that in bringing forth the evidence before the court, the responsibility of lawyers. Here, Rajiv, that's for the judgment. That we have to bring in the judgment in favor of the particular case and against also the particular case. Only then the correct law would evolve. And this is a very, very important aspect. So on this note, I would like to thank Rajiv for being with us today. And we hope Rajiv will come again on this platform on different issues. And before we close down, I would like to thank everybody who was involved in making this event a huge success. I'm sorry for the glitches that we experienced in between, which were beyond our control. But nonetheless, we have to improve the system of video and lecturing further, not only because of the COVID-19 days, but even beyond that, after that. Further, I would specifically like to thank the members of the technical team. Vishnuji, thank you very much. Vishnuji, thank you very much. Rajneesh Wadwarji, I'm really grateful to you for putting in all your efforts to make this event a big success. And the staff of the Faculty of Law, Deepak, Shalini, and of course my own faculty who were there, Dr. Mahalingam and Mr. Shekhar Olian. Thank you so much. And if I've missed out any, please pardon me. And I would wholeheartedly like to thank every person that has participated in this lecture, the students of FGT University, the Faculty of Law, and also anybody from outside, whether he or she is a student or an advocate. Thank you so much. And in case you want to ask some questions, please be free to ask. We can keep this, maybe 5 minutes or so.
Absolutely, ma'am. No difficulty. We can do that.
No problem, Rajiv. Anybody wants to ask any question?
There is a question from Professor Khanna.
Yes, Khannaji, please.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, sir.
Rajiv to share his contact details for the benefit of everybody. His talk was excellent.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, Rajiv. How are you?
Thank you so much.
Give your contact details for the benefit of all the participants. Your contact details.
I see,
Let me share your email. Rajiv, please share your email with everybody. Who want to ask a question?
Email and telephone number. Let some students come and
Yeah.
contact you.
Rajiv Bansal at rajivbansal.com. RAJIV.
Okay, Rajiv.
In the sale,
Rajiv.
at rajivbansal.com.
Okay. So anybody else who's got a question? Any student? Any student who's got a question? None. Okay, maybe they can ask him on his email address. Yes, Rajiv? Thank you once again, Rajiv. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. आपका नाम तो बोला है